Diana, Andrea, and Joe, thanks for coming on. Really excited about having you on today. Um, Dan is on this call as well. So we're just gonna go through everything that we've previously discussed in the hopes that this will hopefully help many coaches that are coming into the game for the first time or been into the game in different avenues. And we'll hopefully give them some resources to go away from this. So first of all, I'd just love to everybody to introduce themselves. I'm Andrew Taylor. I'm the Grassroots Development Manager for NorCal Premier. I oversee the grassroots for NorCal Premier, including the Super Rec, and also oversee the playdates. Dan, you want to give a little brief on you?
Sure. Dan Chamberlain, I'm the Director of Competitions at NorCal Premier and help oversee all of our competitions, including our grassroots and recreational program.
Diana?
I am Diana Lujan. I am a mom of three. All three of my kids play soccer in the AFC club. AFC is Almaden Football Club. Almaden is a suburb of San Jose here in California. My oldest is a boy. He plays U16 recreational, and I coach his team. My middle kid is my daughter. She plays in the competitive program at AFC, so I do not coach her. I tried to, but it was a lot, so I dropped that part of it. And then my youngest is playing, he's a 9-year-old fourth grader, and he's playing in U12, and I'm coaching him as well.
Awesome.
I grew up playing soccer here in the Bay Area. I played in high school, I played in club, and went on to play 2 years of junior college ball at De Anza College, and then transferred and played Division II soccer in Colorado. Since then, I've stayed pretty close to the game. I started coaching when I was a teenager. It was my first job. I started coaching at Kids Love Soccer and tried to herd cats. So 3, 4, 5 year olds. It was a lot of fun. And I've been in love with it ever since.
Beautiful. And Joe?
Joe Maldonado, very happy, excited, loving, beautiful, most wonderful life I have. I have 6 healthy children, 5 boys, and then a little girl. I've coached 84 teams in the last 21 years. Right now, I'm coaching 3 teams: a U19 boys, a U16 boys. I'm sorry, I'm almost home, and a U14 girls. And just love every second of it. It's absolutely incredible. So again, 21 years in Roseville near Sacramento,
Awesome.
in the rec area.
Andrea?
Hi, Andrea Moore, Drea. Started out playing soccer in the Sacramento area, started out in a co-ed program because we didn't have a lot of girls teams, and worked my way up to a girls select team, and then played comp into high school, and then started to coach in high school, coached a select girls team, and then worked my way up to coaching my own kids, and coached a comp team there for a little bit, and went back to the rec program when my kids were little, and have stayed there ever since. Really feel like staying kind of at that level, and building into the entry level program, and teaching the kids how to love the sport and know the sport is my calling, and making them kind of I want them to love the game enough that they want to pursue it at a higher level. And if I can teach them and give them the passion to try harder and go farther, I want to kind of be their launching pad. And so that's kind of what I pride myself on. I don't have any kids left. All 6 of our kids are grown and out of the house. So my husband and I are recycling through some kids that aren't our own, but we take them on and love them. And so we're currently coaching a U19 girls team here in the Sacramento area through Capital Valley Football Club, which is a conglomerate of 7 different leagues that came together about 4 years ago, right before COVID. So it's been a great experience, and I've been coaching since I was 15. And like Diana, I just love having it. Fell in love with it when I was a kid, and it's been a part of my life ever since.
That's amazing. And part of this webinar is to share that we've all been there before, this first time coaching. And for me personally, I coached my 7-year-old daughter's first rec game last spring. I've always been in the comp side. I thought it was going to be a true easy transition, and I found out it was not. So this prompted me to get some experienced folks like yourself on a webinar, just so we can guide people, hopefully, from some of even the things that I encountered when I was coaching my 7-year-old in rec. I didn't realize how important a end of season party was, and that is more important than winning a game. So I really appreciate you jumping on this call, and getting to know you and speaking to you in the past. I've realized how much you care about the game and how passionate you are. And it all started with, all right, I'm going to coach. And that's kind of where we're at right now. So we'll kind of get into the questioning on that and why you started coaching, and we'll go through there. So I'll give the first question to Joe. Why did you start coaching?
I grew up in the country, youth sports there, kindergarten to 8th grade. You had the same, I mean, we had so few children out there. My dad stepped up and coached, and he made it fun. And as I've grown older, I've ran into those parents and parents of those children, and they complimented how much fun my dad made it. My dad had no idea what he was doing. He just stepped up. He's a Vietnam vet who got blown up and saw action, and his motto in life is just love one another, family and friends. And I was like, wow, he really touched these people, in a positive way. And so when we started having children, I wanted to do the same. And I just said, you know what? I don't know how to play soccer, but I grew up in Penryn, man. But then I said, well, I'm going to jump in now and learn it as I go, and always be open to just learn and learn and learn, and just be the best I can. And I think having the goal of my number one priority is just help mold and these children, these humans, and of course, the number one goal for me is that they want to continue to play sports next year. That's so that's what I've done, and I love it. And just yesterday at practice, I admitted out loud that I just learned something new the day before that. And I did on a little Facebook little video. And I love it because I share it with the children. I'm like, 21 years. And I just learned that drill yesterday. And they're just looking at me. Just the expression in their face. They're like, wow, I'm sorry, guys, I could talk. So that's enough.
No, that's all good. This is why you're on the call, because you're passionate about it. Diana, for yourself, why did you get into coaching?
So I got into coaching early. I would say that I fell in love with the sport as a player, and I would say that coaching is just another way to be close to the sport. I'll admit that I've never ventured off into refereeing. That is in itself a whole nother animal with its own challenges. Maybe that'll be next on the list, but I figured it was another way to enjoy the game.
Beautiful. Andrea?
Like Joe, my dad was a coach. My brothers and we all played multiple sports, and my dad was a basketball player. And so I played basketball, softball, and soccer. And my dad was my softball, basketball, and soccer coach, but he didn't understand soccer. And so, but like Joe said, he stepped up and coached, and it was my dad's love of the kids, not the game, that made me want to coach. It was his joy of loving on the kids and being in the moment a thing, and inspiring kids to be in the moment. And I think that that stayed with me, and understanding from him that coaching was more than the sport. It was about creating a culture and a community, and teaching kids that life is more than about what you're doing with a ball. It's more about being committed to the people around you and being on time, and lifting others up and encouraging them, and winning together, losing together, setting goals and meeting them together and individually. And I think I learned all that from my dad, and my dad's my hero. So I just kind of wanted to follow in his footsteps. And when the opportunity presented itself in high school to be an assistant to a woman that I really admired who was coaching a select team. I just said, yeah, absolutely. On my days off, I followed in her footsteps and tried to model myself after my dad. So I just fell in love with it and can't seem to walk away, even though my kids are grown. So
Yeah, we all seem to get into that. And I think the most important thing of why we're coaching, and if you're new to coaching and this is your first year taking up a recreational team, is you've already done the hardest part, which is signing up and saying yes. And as soon as you do that part, you are steps and miles ahead of everybody else because you're choosing to donate your time for the betterment of the kids around you. And it's such a special moment. And Joe talked about learning, learning something new. And every environment as a coach, if you're willing to learn and take advice and also have people there to support. I'm sure if you reached out to other coaches in your club area or league, they would be able to give you that support that they had for the first time. And like I said, my first recreational practice was in spring, and I needed support as a person that's coached soccer for 20 years in the comp side. So I just think it's amazing that anybody, especially if you're a volunteer coach, is stepping up and taking that moment. So I think it's really important to understand that is the hardest part of what you're about to do. And that we will all get through it together, and hopefully we can give you all the resources for that. Yeah.
I think one thing that I just loved hearing everyone say at some point here is that the real purpose or the real kind of piece behind what you're doing has little to do with the actual sport and everything to do with the kids and helping them grow, which is something that I think gets really lost sometimes in our hyper competitive elite world of sport sometimes, and really refreshing to hear all three of you really emphasize that in your why, which is incredible to hear. As you guys have started coaching and maybe thinking back to when you first got started, or maybe even something as an experienced coach, we all face difficulties on the field, and we'd love to hear about some of the challenges that you faced. Like I said, either when you first started out or something that you currently face, and how you tackle those. Let's start with Diane on this one.
I guess my transition into coaching early on was pretty smooth. As a female coach, when I first started, after I coached the young kids, I moved into coaching some girls' competitive teams. But it wasn't until I had my son and he started playing that I started coaching boys. And now I'm coaching U16 boys, which is altogether different, I feel like. And that I think is a little bit challenging. I think anytime you have a coach of a different gender than the players, you may be missing some sort of connection that you might gain if you're coaching the same gender. But I think if you take the time to get to know your players and just to talk to them, because sometimes I think the issues that they're experiencing in life, not on the field, can naturally creep into your training sessions and your games. And if you just take the time to just talk to them and ask them what's going on, talk to me, how can I help? I think that really develops a coach-player connection that can help you overcome those challenges. For example, I had a teenage boy the last few years that was probably on the spectrum and had a very sort of stereotypical male dominant dad, who his father played a lot of soccer and so then knew a lot about the game, and then therefore felt like he needed to tell his son exactly how he should play and what he was doing wrong. And it made my player kind of not love to come to games and to play soccer. And so when I talked to him about it, I understood that when he was at training with me at my sessions, that he just needed a little bit of space to just play, just be a kid and just play. And it made me understand that that's what he needed, and maybe he needed something a little bit different than some of what my other players needed. So I would say that's probably my most recent challenge that I could share. I will say that once you get into like the teenage years, definitely, when I coached girls competitive, the teenage years definitely brings, a whole host of hormones and friendship drama and stuff like that that can show up on the field. But with young kids, I think you just have fun. I think the challenge is, as an adult, being able to put ourselves back into a kid's shoes. And a lot of the kids as players, they just want to have fun. They just want to play and have fun. And sometimes as adults, we want to see results, right? We want to see like a skill learned or, a progress on development or something like that. And sometimes we need to just kind of remind ourselves about what it is to be a kid.
Great message. Love it. Drea, what about you?
I think Diana makes a great point, and that's remembering that we're dealing with humans. And for me, I guess the biggest challenge of late that I think I've mastered, or I think I've herded the cats a little bit, is the human parents. I am dealing with some teen drama. I have U19 girls, and so we've definitely, and this is round 2 for me on the teen girls of late, but with those teen girls come the parents dealing with teen girls, and so they are also at their wits' end. So remembering the dynamic of the humans that are dealing with these teen emotions at home, and kids who are getting their driver's licenses and driving to practice, and dealing with getting their first relationships and significant others, and tanking in their grades, and these have been honor students their whole life, and suddenly they don't care about school, or they've completely switched their friend groups, and it's a very tough time for the parents. And again, the focus is on the parents. And so, but these parents have also struggled with the adjustment that I'm asking them for on the sideline, which is they've been very, very vocal fans, right? These are their babies, and they want them to be very successful. And sometimes they've even been soccer players, or they've been their coaches when they were very young. And so reining them in from coaching on the sideline using verbs like go, shoot, run, kick, pass, defend her, things of that nature. So we've really been pushing this culture of not a silent sideline, but cheering only when the ball goes out of bounds, only using words that don't include verbs, right? Like good pass, great share, great shot. They can only cheer after the ball goes in the net, right? They can't say anything before the ball goes in the net. They can use words of encouragement on a dead ball. So before a goal kick, before a corner kick, before the ball gets thrown in, before the whistle blows at a kickoff. These are times when they can give those encouragements to their kids. And it's been a struggle to get to that point, and it's been a work in progress. And I have had some challenges where I've had to walk a parent to their car and have a discussion about, are we here for you and your motivations, or are we here for a kid to be successful and feel good about their day? I've had to remind parents that the ride home from the car is not the time for you to talk about how you thought the game should have gone. The child is processing the game. They don't need your input or your opinion. Even if you played D1 soccer, this is not the time for you to talk about what happened. Your kids are smarter than you think. They are, in fact, the expert on the game because they played it. They don't need to know how you feel about it. They need to hear, I love you. Right. And so the parents have been the biggest challenge for me, I think. And the older I get, the less tolerance I have for their sideline shenanigans. And so, it's kind of been this process of developing these expectations. And I think for me, I have learned over the years, and if I can impart any wisdom, and that's to set clear expectations at the beginning of the season and have that meeting at the very beginning with my parents and say, hey, this is my structure. These are my expectations. This is my contract with you. This is my contract that you're going to sign with your player. That you're not going to violate this trust that you have with my player on the field. Because when they're in my custody, they're ultimately my player. They're your child, but they're my player. And in order for us to be successful, I need you to follow these rules, or there are these consequences. I will ask you to leave. I will ask you to step outside the realm of the field, and you can watch from afar or in your car, where you can say all the nasty, wonderful things that you're thinking to yourself. So I think that's been a big challenge, but it's also been a big success because we've learned how to work through that, and my parents now understand that. And it doesn't mean we're perfect, and it doesn't mean that we haven't had to revisit those rules once in a while, but I definitely think the culture of the negativity on the sideline is growing, and I think it has to be addressed. And I do think more and more the parent volunteer who's out there coaching is going to encounter that. And so I think that's something to keep in the forefront of their mind is, how do I nip it in the bud before we get there? How do I stop the train before it hits the tracks, kind of thing. And so that's kind of been my biggest challenge.
Yeah, I think that's I think it's a challenge every coach has in any sport at this point. I see it all over the place. And we had a really in-depth and fun conversation with Anthony Chico yesterday, who's the COO of the Soccer Parenting Association. We're gonna and we'll post those to our website, that conversation, as well as a ton of resources for coaches. But Drea, that's actually everything that you said was exactly what he said yesterday, which was really cool to hear. Joe, what about you?
I need a course on how to get this off of mute. Okay, here, I got it. Number one is set the example, or is to set the tone from the very first time you meet these new parents. Forgive me if I mispronounced it. Drea? Is that right? It was awesome. You said, your contract. I have a contract that the parents sign and the kids sign. And I love it because I've had a parent complain, I can't believe this league does this. And I let him go. And I go, sir, this has nothing to do with the league. It has everything to do with me. This is my rules. And that I don't take any garbage at all. The kids can come out here, have fun, and fall on their face. And you know what? No one's going to tease you because you're working hard as you can and try to get better. Anyways, just setting the tone, 100%, not 99%. Not if I'm in a good mood or a bad mood that day. It's 100%. I will take zero tolerance. And that's going with you as well, parents. And then I look at the parents and get eye to eye, and I want to see if I'm getting through to them, if they're on the same page with me. Because I could tell that, okay, wow, this guy is going to be a little hard and want the best for our child, and I could see it. And then I could also see the parents that are like, this guy's freaking out there, man. And so I have a little sidebar and I talk to them on the side. And you're leading by example. Parents on the sideline, you're leading by example. Do you want your child to be like you are one day, And then the one little story I'll tell to these parents in that first meeting, and this is the greatest ever, and I do it the very first time I meet them. I go, I'm going to say this one time, and I promise you're not going to be that parent on the sideline. You ready? When you're going off on that little 12, 13, 14-year-old AR who has the courage to step up and be an AR, what would you do if that was your child and you heard that adult going off on your child? And I said, enough said. I go, you want to know what I'd do? I'd follow you home, but we're not going to talk about that. I go, but that we're leading by example, folks. It's for the child, And then just tons of other little stories, but that's what I do. I think the biggest thing is just leading by example and setting the tone from the very beginning. I've over 1,200 children. That means over 2,500 parents I've dealt with. And I've only had to kick one parent off the team, one kid off the team. I will say, Andrew, just 3 years ago at the Super Rec tournament, this is the big issue that I had. Elk Grove team, I have pictures and video. 6 parents, grown men, came on the field wanting to fight. And not one parent from my sideline crossed that line, including me. And I'm just like, the refs had no control at all. And at the end, they said, oh, it was under control. It was no big deal. But the thing was, it wasn't. My sideline was in control. If I would have had one idiot parent go out on that field, you don't know what could have happened, So that was really scary. So I pride myself and feel proud of our parents keeping their composure and leading by example, even though it's really ugly out there. But again, that starts with trying to set the tone from the beginning.
Yeah, I think it's important to really have that self-reflection as well as a coach, but also to be brave in what we're doing. We are trying to set examples, and sometimes that is tough conversations, but being brave to have that conversation. At the end of the day, if you have the kids' better interests at heart and you're trying to make that environment better for everyone, that conversation can come from a great place, and it's up to that parent how they take that conversation too. So I think it's really important setting that tone example. But as a coach, as a volunteer coach, especially, be brave with how you feel and what you're trying to project onto your team, because that's what you have to hold your own standards to throughout that full season as well. So you want to make sure that your standards are pushed across to your parents as well. I wanted to just move on to kind of leads into how you prepare for practices and games and how you've been able to use your, whether it be mentorships or use other coaches as resources. So I just kind of wanted to touch on that as a question. So we could start with Drea. How do you approach your practices and games, and what are some of the resources that you've used in the past where you're like, I don't know something, where do I go?
So the way we structure our week is that Mondays are for offense, Wednesdays are for defense. And so Mondays, we structure everything towards offense. Wednesdays are structured for defense. What doesn't change is that every time we warm up, our warm-ups start the same. And that way, when the kids get there, the routine is always the same. So the run or the warm-up run and then the dynamic stretch or the trap setters volleys, it's all the same. So the routine when they get there Monday or Wednesday is regardless, it's the same. But from there, they know that Monday's going to be offensive leaning and Wednesday's going to be defensive leaning. And so when we're writing out a plan, if it's preseason, we try to think of who do we have. You know, we use Team Snap. So I look at who I have coming to practice. I think about, I'm an experienced coach, right? If you're not experienced, you might think about starting with fundamentals so that you can get an evaluation of where they're at. Can they kick a ball? Do they know what your terminology is or what terminology you're going to use as a team? Because everybody uses a little bit different terminology. You might work on team building, building chemistry. So maybe doing some fun, like mixing it up drills where some of the things that you're doing, you're kind of like, you win little small-sided like pullback games, and then they have to learn something fun about each other before they can get to the next person, so that you're building that instant chemistry because you only have a couple of weeks before your first match. And so, but in my experience, because I know my kids, if I know who's coming or I know how many people are coming, that's how I structure my practice, is what kind of drills can I do if I have 12 coming? What can I do if I have an odd number coming? And so that's how I build my practice. And then working towards the weekend. So once we're starting games, we play a game, and then I come from an emergency response position. And so as an emergency responder, we do a hot wash of what went well and what didn't go well. And so I ask my kids on Monday to hot wash the game. And it's led by them, alphas and deltas. What went well, what didn't go well, what do we need to work on? And so we do that every Monday after the game. And we start with what we need to work on constructively. And they tell us what didn't go well and what needs to be fixed. And then we end on what they think went well. And then we take what they think didn't go well, and it usually aligns with what I think didn't go well. So I've already written my practice plan. And then we incorporate those things into the drills, right? So if maybe we lacked communication, maybe we were bunching, right? So then we incorporate spacing into our drills. We incorporate extra communication. Maybe we're not releasing the ball fast enough, so we go into a 2-touch keep away drill, right? So we incorporate those lessons learned from the weekend instantly into that Monday offensive drill. Where do I go if I don't have resources? Our club has Coach Mentor. That happens to be me. So if other coaches don't have drill ideas, they can reach out to me. I come out to their practice, or they've run dry, they're just not sure, or they don't know how to start practice, they're brand new. I can help them structure that. But I use Instagram. I follow every soccer club from here to Scotland, all the big name, you know, all the local trainers. I follow everybody. And I take, even if it's not in a language I understand, I follow the drill. And if I can't figure it out, I try to tweak it in a way that I understand, or I try to tweak it to something that, and often it can be confusing. You're like, A, B, C, D, where do they start? Where do they end? Like, it can be kind of confusing, but sometimes you can get the gist from YouTube. YouTube's great because they do often explain it. And if they don't explain it well in the video, it's often written in the comments. And so the internet's amazing. Like, what did we do before the internet? I don't even know. Like, I have a binder full of handwritten drills that I haven't even looked at. It's collecting dust. It's like this big, and it's full of handwritten practice plans on these pages of fields that I hand drew a soccer field, and then I printed a bunch of blank soccer fields, and I hand wrote my practices. I split the grid into 4, and then I had like, okay, the first half hour, second half hour, third half hour, and then the final 30 minutes was scrimmaging. And so it was like, that's how I designed my practices. And I love the internet. It's my biggest resource. If I'm not sure, I'll go to a coach and say, hey, what do you think of this? Or did that work for you? I saw you doing this drill. That looks great. I'll take it. I'll tweak it. Other coaches are a fantastic resource. Always go to somebody that's been doing it longer than you. They're a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, and I think that for every club or everyone hearing this, you may feel that you can't, but I can guarantee you those clubs want to help you out with that, and they want you to produce the best practices and the best environment for your kids. So if you don't, and there's many resources and you need resources, you can reach out to NorCal Premier, and we can you can get my email address, and we can connect you with like-minded people that can also help with that. So thank you for that one. Diana.
Wow, that's all great. I don't know how I follow up on that. I would say, for me, for our rec program here at AFC, we have 2 practices a week and a game on a Saturday. One of those practices is actually led by an AFC professional coach. So me as a volunteer coach, I only have to plan 1 training session a week, and that's only an hour. And for new coaches, an hour might feel like a lot. Like, how do I fill an hour? But an hour goes by very, very quickly, especially with young kids or just any age group, but it goes by so quickly. For me, I find it helpful to approach each training session with a theme. So Drea said, one day is offense, one day is defense. I break it down a little bit further. So I may do a dribbling session. I may do a passing session. I may do a finishing session. I may do a defensive session. And I break it down into quarter-hour segments, so 15 minutes. So 15 minutes warm-up, 15 minutes drill, 15 minutes of some sort of competitive drill. So it may be an iteration of the first drill, or it just may be a different one. But I think once you do a drill and then you add in another layer of how to make it competitive, like who can get the most passes in a row, who can get the most touches in a minute. And then always ending your training sessions with a scrimmage, or a fun game, some type of a little bit more freer kind of structure, to let them see if they can apply whatever the drill was teaching into a very similar to a game scenario. And then I think Dre mentioned on this, once your season kind of gets going and you start playing games, it becomes very clear what you may want to work on. When you're first starting, and especially if you don't know the kids, that's hard to know. But always, fundamentals are always great. Technical skills are always great. Being comfortable with the ball at their feet is always great. But I think once you get into game situations, you'll see about what you may want to work on, what they need help with. But that's how I approach my training sessions.
I think that's great, with just the adapting to your environment as well. And it's okay to mess up and fail on an exercise that you planned out and you spent so much time on, and it doesn't work. It's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I had my first training sessions yesterday, and there are new kids, and I was going from, on one field, we have like 6 practices, 6 teams practicing at the same time. And a couple of my kids were in the wrong place at a different team's practice, and one of them was over here. I had one that wasn't mine. So also knowing that you may have this plan, you may put together this great session plan that progresses from the warm-up to the drill to the game, and knowing that it may all go to shit, it may all go to hell. And having the grace with yourself and with your kids to be ready to completely abandon it and just say, you know what, we're going to play sharks and minnows or knockout or rondos, and then we'll scrimmage. Let's just scrimmage. And that is not lost, right? That training session is not entirely lost, because if the kids are playing and they're touching a ball, they're learning and they're getting better. So it helps to be prepared, but I think it also helps to be prepared that it's not going to go according to plan.
Awesome. And Joe, what's some of the resources you've used in the past 21 years of coaching the grassroots area?
So just like Drea said, I got a binder full of handwritten. Oh my gosh. And just like me, it's collecting dust. But anyways, yes, the internet. I don't even YouTube and Instagram, Facebook. I don't use Instagram, but Facebook. Yeah, I'm sure it's all the same, but Facebook videos. And I'm sorry, this is coming. I don't know what happened here.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
all right.
like we lost Joe.
All right. Well, we'll connect back with Joe. And Dan, could you move on to the next one?
Yeah. So I think, one of the things that I love to hear about, and I think anyone would, as Andrew mentioned at the top, everyone's already taken the hardest step by raising your hand and saying, I'm going to do this. And then as Deanna pointed out a minute ago, sometimes it can all go to hell and get all crazy, but it ends up being, at least in my experience and all the coaches that I know, really worth it, because there's just so many rewarding moments that come from that. And I'd be really interested in hearing, what are your most rewarding moments that you've had in your coaching career? Let's, Deanna, start with you.
I'll give you two. One is when players come back to play the next season. And that, at the beginning of each season, in my introductory email, I let them know that that's my goal. I want to see players fall in love with the sport and come back next season. The level above that is requesting me as their coach. That is probably my greatest reward. So having players stay in the sport and wanting me as their coach. I realize that I may not be everyone's cup of tea, so whether or not they request me, that's fine. But if they're playing, and I think somebody earlier on the call said it too, not necessarily soccer, but just staying in sports, because I think sports just teaches so many life lessons. So just staying active. My greatest reward last season was the sister of an opposing player that we played against, and we beat. She came up to me afterwards and said, she loved seeing a female coach coaching a boys team, and she said that representation matters, and it gave her a lot of confidence. Sorry. And that was huge. That's the one and only time that's ever happened to me. But to have a teenage girl it mean enough to her to have the courage and the bravery to come up to a complete stranger and say that was my best reward of all time ever.
That's incredible. Really, really cool story. Drea, what about you?
For me, I also have two, and I had shared this with Andrew, and that's that we had retired, and we got that call that said, from the president of the league, that said, well, if you don't coach, this team of girls isn't going to be able to play. They have no coach, and we're going to have to turn them all away. And that, of course, broke my heart. And we coached, and he had said, well, this is temporary. It's just for spring. And then they'll all go back to their own teams. They're from 7 different leagues, and they'll all go back to their own leagues, and you'll be released and go about your retirement, and it'll be great. And of course, after 2 weeks, the parents were coming to us saying, you don't have a team to coach? And no, we're retired. We're not going to coach. We're just going to do this spring thing. And then we're done. Our girls are moved on. They're all off to college in the fall, and they begged us to stay. And I said, but you're all from different leagues. They're like, no, we're going to sign up for whatever league you coach for. So just please. And that touched my husband and I so much that we decided to stay. And here we are 5 years later with a U19 team. But I think the thing that touches me the most, and now Diana, I'm going to cry. So, is that we have a little girl on our team that has cerebral palsy. And her doctor at Shriners told her she shouldn't be able to run. And the fact that she can backpedal, the fact that she scored the goal for us that got us through to the Cal Cup final in Fremont. She has one of the prettiest header goals I've ever seen on film. It's just, what greater reward. I mean, it's the reason we keep getting these invites to coach the high school, take our team to comp, and absolutely not. And as long as she's playing for me, as long as she's able to play, I will stay here. And that was my promise to her. As long as she can do it, I'm here. I'm here for the long haul. And that's been the biggest reward of my coaching career ever, is that not only is it totally unexpected for her to just simply run, but she's an athlete now, not just somebody that gets her minimum 33% minutes. She plays more than half the game because I count on her. And that's not lip service. She is a full member of my team that I count on. And I'm so proud of that. And I'm done.
That's incredible story. Thank you for sharing that. Joe, welcome back. Glad we could get you back on. I think you missed the question part of this, so I'll throw it out there for you again. We're asking everyone to share their most rewarding moments of coaching, as it can be a difficult endeavor at times, but these moments that we've just described, I think, kind of make it all worth it. So what are yours?
First off, as a coach, adapt, right? I just lost you guys. I was back there. You couldn't see me. I couldn't hear you. I jumped off, got up. Anyways, here I am. I'm so happy. I've had 2 boys all the way with me to U19, and 2 boys got brain tumors. And I've also had a girl, a 9-year-old girl with cancer. And so I've had 3 very emotional that way. The one with the brain tumor, and he was able to come back, and he always wore this, I think, like rugby helmet. It was a padded helmet. He was our goalie. And there was kids on the other team teasing him about his helmet. And I'm like, okay, number 9. That coach is going to hear it from me. No, I'm just going to make sure I get my point across. So when we go and we shake hands, I go, hey, coach, number 9, your son? He said, yeah. I said, hey, come on over here, number 9. He came over, and I go, you're over there teasing my goalie with that little helmet. How you feel about that? I'm speaking man to man, right to this guy's face. How do you feel about that? I go, do you know, about 2 months ago, he was on his deathbed with a tumor the size of like an orange. And I go, now he's out here, and he's brave, and he's out here, and he's working his butt off. I'm sharing this story with you for hopefully it'll wake you up and realize there's no reason for that on the field. There's no reason to tease him. He was almost dead 2 months ago, 3 months ago. And the coach just looks at me. I mean, at first he wanted to fight when I was calling out his son, but then right there, he's like, wow, this is a little teaching moment, hopefully. And so that's one example. The girl with the cancer, we signed up for soccer. The dad was rubbing her tubby, reading her a book at night, and he felt a lump. And she had this cancer. I don't remember the name of it, but so sad. I mean, down to like 50-something pounds. And she took a year or 2 off from soccer, and now she came back, and she's a beast. She is the toughest girl on our team. And we're just close with the family, and just to have that side and just to be there and just be a part of our life. And I'm splurging. I don't have the money, but my dad and I, we splurge when it's Cancer Awareness Month. We got the shirts, we got the socks, we do it all. I don't ask. You can't please 100% of the people 100% of the time. You don't ask, you just do it. And it's just so fun. And then to wrap it up on rewarding, one of the boys in my first team, the Condors, he's now 25. He just graduated and become a police officer in Citrus Heights. It's a local town here. And he's a police officer. And as he's up there getting his credentials and graduation, the dad, who has been one of my coaches way back in the Little League days, I mean, he looked at me and he goes, "You know, you're a huge part of this, right?" And, instead of saying, "Oh, no," I was proud. And I said, "Yeah, I know." Because I had kicked that kid off of my team one year, and he was my coach's son, and the coach didn't know it was coming. And the reason why is he didn't give a high five to the other coach when we were getting high fives at the end of the game. And I kicked him off and said, we'll have a meeting, and you'll explain why the team should allow you back on. And we accepted him back on. And now that he's 25 years old, I've asked him face to face. He's one of my son's best friends. And I've asked him face to face, I go, "What do you think about that day when you're only 12 years old and I kicked you off the team?" And he said, "I wouldn't have it any other way, coach." Oh, I mean, so yeah, I just love it. I got too many stories like that. Can I say one thing about the last question you asked when I got lost there? This is for coaches. So if you're coaching U16, U19, you should have a pretty decent, a little bit of experience. But I want to speak to the brand new coaches. First off, number one, this could be the best time of your life. It should be, and it probably will be the best years of your life. I guarantee it. Don't talk about the good old days, because the good old days are today. They're right now. You're making the good old days. What I do at a practice is on the younger ones, the one thing I always did at the end was the bucket of licorice. First find out if any of the kids are allergic, but the bucket of licorice. And as practices are going on, I mean, this could be all the way up to U10, U11, U12. Remember every single one, okay? Dan, great practice today. I loved how you kept us on schedule, Dan. You did a great job. We need more leadership like that. Dan, thanks for giving us a schedule. Andrew, thanks for making this all happen today, because, we need a leader like you out there. Drea, that experience you have, and you're still coaching when you don't even have any children, it's just blown away. Don't feel bad about that emotional. It just shows that you got passion and you care. And Deanna, I can never pronounce your name right, but please forgive me. But I just love how you just got the passion too, and you're coaching a boys team, and it's just very impressive. So, just try to find something for each one of the kids and give them a little piece of licorice, and then move on. And I've been told that they love that. Years later, they love those little moments. I've done stickers, but that was just too much work, so I just do the licorice.
To touch on that part of it is like I think you can see in all three of you how passionate and why you do this is so evident. And without coaches and volunteers like yourself, we can't get through this grassroots programming. It is run on people like you, and I have a job because of that, and I'm very thankful for that. But you can definitely see how rewarding it is for the players and you. But also you don't realize it as you're coaching how much this could affect someone until 10 years down the line, someone is like, "Remember, you used to call me Fluffy," or like, "You made it fun for me." And that's like, you can tell from all three of you how important that piece is, where you want to make a lasting a lasting moment in their life. And you think it was winning. No, they're talking about the licorice, or they're talking about that time that you helped them through a tough moment. And that's really why we're doing it. And just to see that from you is amazing. And then it leads me, Joe, into my last question before we wrap up here is just, Diana, what would you give for a piece of advice to a new coach coming into this for the first time? What's the one piece of advice you would give them just to move on from this moment?
Ooh, one piece, huh? That's tough. One piece, probably that would set you up for a good experience and the most success would be to set clear expectations from the beginning. There's a whole host of other things, like don't forget to have fun, blah, blah, blah. But I think if you set clear expectations, and I think that is the case with anything in life, right? Like if you want to have a good marriage, if you want to be good at work, I think clear expectations just set you up for success in anything. Because if you say right from your intro email, "I'm a volunteer parent, I've never played soccer, I've never coached soccer," right away that signals to your other parents on your team what to expect from the season, right? They're not going to expect the sun and moon and stars from a new volunteer coach, right? Or in your intro email, say, I've never coached, but we weren't going to have a team unless somebody stood up and did this. And that's what I did. And I think right away, if you just set clear expectations, it's a great way to kind of manage that, right? Like, so you won't get parents coming down and being judgmental or condescending, because they understand where you're coming from. So I think that would probably be, if I had to just give one, I would say that just give clear expectations or manage expectations.
Love that completely. Drea?
Well, Diana stole my answer. So I think have fun is the obvious answer. It's a game. It's supposed to be fun, so don't make it serious. So I think I'll say that recruit help. You are not a superhero. You're a human. You have a life outside of what you're doing as a volunteer. You may have a spouse. You may have your own family. You may have a job. You may be a stay-at-home parent juggling all the things in the house and managing schedules and I think it's important to remember that you can't do it all. You should not be the one striping the field on a Saturday morning. You should not be the one setting a snack schedule. You should not be the one organizing the end of the season party, right? There are a multitude of things that come with running a successful team. And that doesn't always fall on one coach and one team manager. And I think it's important to surround yourself with a team and a community of people that are willing to help. And it really does take a village to create this culture of a successful team. And if you want to start with a youth program and take that team all the way through U19, the way we have, it really means getting your families involved and caring about what happens to their kids. And that's getting them to buy into your culture. And so I think, like Diana said, if you set that expectation at the beginning and you ask for help and say, I can't do it all, this is my job. I am the coach and this is what I will be doing. And that, I do A and B through Z. I need someone for each of these things. Please step up and do them. I think that's the key to being happy, because if you're trying to do B through Z, you're not going to be happy. You're going to be resentful. So be the coach, let B through Z be handled by other people, but delegate and ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Amazing. And I've got, I'll wrap this up here. And I just want to say thank you so much to the three of you. You have just been unbelievable through this process. And I think you're a wealth of knowledge. As much as I wish I could hand out your phone numbers and emails to everybody, I won't. But I really think that everybody listening to this can find your Diana and can find your Drea and your Joe in your club. I can almost guarantee you will find that person. And just use them as much as you can and they're willing to. But I just want to thank you again for your time and effort and everything you do for these players. It's very evident to see how much you care. And I am so happy that we got you three on a call, and hopefully we can continue to do this in the future.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much,
guys.
Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Have good seasons.